Welcome to Decision Analyst Insider Series webinar on usability research. My name is Christy Allen and I am the Marketing Director at Decision Analyst and the moderator today. Please feel free to ask any questions by typing in the chat box. We will attempt to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. If we don't answer your question during the webinar, someone will respond to your question within a day or two. Today's presenters are Clay Detloff. He is the Senior Vice President of Insights and Innovation at Decision Analyst. Clay is an experienced marketing research professional who is constantly searching for new and innovative research tools that can aid in uniting together consumer-driven insights with corporate visions. And Roger Wallace, he's a qualitative analyst at Decision Analyst, is co-presenting. Roger specializes in qualitative and innovation research, including ethnography, usability research, and new concept development. And with that, I will hand the presentation over to Roger.
Thank you, Christy. This webinar is based on the journey we've taken at this company in conducting usability research. That journey as a company includes me, our team, and ultimately our clients who really make it all possible. And also some very interesting projects, to be sure. So since I arrived here about 14 years ago, we've been doing website usability research. One of my first experiences in year one was conducting remote live screen sharing interview. Gosh, that was about 14 years ago, and we had to be one of the first research companies to start using that type of platform. Since then, we've conducted many website and app usability studies, and we'll talk about that initially in this webinar. But as we conducted other qualitative and new product studies over the years, we started to realize that many of the guidelines, the approaches, the techniques we use for website usability can also apply to other things besides evaluating a website or an app. But things, many things that are around us to help us, move through the world and make it easier.
All right, Roger, you're right. And let me give you my own personal example that really hit home this weekend about usability. So about 2 weeks ago, my grass blower went out on me. And so this weekend, I got a new grass blower for my yard to clean off my driveways and everything. And I got it all in, got it fixed up. I started reading the instructions on the handle. I was like, I don't need to read the instruction manual, so I just went straight to the little directions they had on the machine. And I, followed step 1. I followed step 2. I followed step 3. I pumped. I did everything I should. And this was after mowing the yard and after, edging the sidewalks. And I was a little bit tired and went through all these directions and tried to start it, and it wouldn't start. And so I'm pumping and pumping and pumping. And I'm like, I'm just worn out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself a 5-minute break, and then I'm going to come back. Well, I came back a few minutes later, tried it again, still couldn't get it. Came back a few minutes later after that, still couldn't get it.
More determined than me.
More determined. But I thought I'm following these directions just like they should be, that were listed right there. So this evening had started coming around. It was getting late. Next morning, I woke up and I grabbed my push broom, just swept it off versus doing anything else. So it was kind of funny. After it was done, I was like, okay, this really is a usability issue for me. Over the years of conducting usability research, it really has become clear that usability is a critical aspect of the customer experience and customer satisfaction. Whether you call it customer experience or the customer journey, ultimately, what many marketers and brands are really trying to do is to improve and enhance that customer experience. And matter of fact, when we talk to clients now about customer experience, we usually have some kind of a usability aspect to it. The better the usability, the better the customer experience that shapes and drives the way we feel about the overall brand and that brand experience. And I think kind of my example, but really and critically, understanding usability is not only about the actions you take, but how you feel, your motivations, your attitudes, and just that general sense of satisfaction. How many times have you or someone near you said, oh, user error. You're trying to do something, and that kind of is a common phrase now that we talk about. We say that, oh, it's maybe me, not the machine or the tool that we're using, or the app or the website. And I think it's really kind of funny that user error, we say it a lot, but do we really mean it? What or is it just, oh, I can't work with this piece or this tool? A usable product is one that really kind of solves a problem. It provides a benefit or helps attain a goal. And it really makes it as easy as possible to do so, both mentally and physically. Why do we need usability research? Because usability measures the quality of that user experience when interacting with that product. Usability also can refer to how well users learn to use a product, and how satisfied, again, that they are with that process or with that product. Usability really needs to understand things like, how efficient is it? How effective is it? How easy is it? And these efficiency, effectiveness, and ease have different diameters or different parameters, if you will, mean different things depending on the different product or service that we use. A lot of it is about interaction. Interactions happen with all products and services. They can happen in person. They can happen via a website or an app. Though interactions happen, the goals that we want from those interactions can vary. It may be to buy a product. It may be to pick up a product, and to, if you're looking at a product on a shelf, the interaction or the goal we want may just be, hey, let me pick it up, turn it around, and see what's on the back of it. To maybe looking for nutritional information. Maybe what we want to do is, it's an app or a website, and we just want them to sign up for emails. Or maybe, again, if it's in the app, the virtual world, maybe we want to have them put something in their virtual shopping cart, if you will. It really is important to understand the interactions, between a user, the website, the app, the product, or the environment. And usability, if you think about it, is about these touch points with the product or service, and it's using the senses. It's using sight, it's using sounds, feel, touch, smell. It's all of these ways. Our senses are really what is the kind of that common factor and those touch points that we have with the product or service. As we go through the rest of our presentation today, we're really going to talk about usability in terms of websites and apps first. And then we're going to kind of broaden the picture, if you will. We'll talk more about physical interactions, such as you could find maybe in a store, workplace, etc. Why does usability matter? And why specifically, as we talk about websites, does website usability matter? Often, kind of back to my example, often with a physical product, you have an instruction manual. Whether you use it or not, don't know. But there's typically that option. In the virtual world, you really don't have things such as a user reading a website manual or otherwise spending much time trying to figure out an interface. A lot of times there's help screens, there's ways to get it, but people pretty much want that direct, immediate kind of benefit right away. In fact, if it's not going to be easy, it's probably not going to happen. About 85% of visitors have abandoned a new site due to poor design. Looking at a couple of other reasons why website usability is important. 50% of web sales are lost because visitors can't easily find content. And finally, 62% of web shoppers gave up while looking for an item. And if I think about my own personal life, I can fit in there with just about each one of those. So I'm going to turn the time back over to Roger now to talk a little bit more about website usability specifically and how it works.
Thanks, Clay. So for website usability, there are two basic approaches: in-person and live stream share. For in-person, we can hold them at focus group facilities, or we can have them at a lab on site. We have one here at Decision Analyst that we've used from time to time. Or we can remotely connect and live stream the observer to the movements. The key part is the ability to observe the behavior, the actions, and trying to understand how they are accomplishing a task or getting something done. So you need either be in person to observe or remotely to view the actions and behaviors. We can include a webcam component for live screen share to see their faces and how they react. But it's not as critical as seeing the actions on the screen and listening to the respondent talk about their experience. When you're thinking about conducting usability interviews, there are really three general key techniques to keep in mind. First, as I mentioned, it's observation-based. You need to see and observe the behaviors, whether it's on screen or in person, as they work through the experience with their website or app. Second, the interviews are basically a series of tasks that you assign to a respondent. And these tasks should be relevant to the user. If someone has never considered or would never consider purchasing a product on a website or online, then having them going through that purchase form or filling those things out may not be the best idea. But if they browse and shop for products, then those would be tasks that you could assign someone. Or they can be scenario-based, much more broad or vague, such as your refrigerator stopped working, and now what are you going to do to solve that? Or you need to get a loan, or want to look into finances. What do you do? So you kind of follow along and see how they accomplish that scenario. Third, and very important, is think aloud protocol, or TAP. It's really key to emphasize to the respondent that you want to hear stream of conscience talking, no filter, just whatever is on their mind. Sometimes, and even initially, they get kind of quiet, and you just have to kind of nudge them, give them gentle reminders. What are you thinking about? What's going on there? What are you trying to do? This allows the moderator really to better understand those causes that underlie usability issues. It also reduces the need for us to try to interpret what they're doing because we're hearing it and we're watching the actions. And also, I think more importantly, it really reduces the need for questions during the experience. You want to try to hold those as much as possible, if any, and have them complete their task or their scenario uninterrupted. Then once they're done, you can use those keywords or phrases or experiences to probe deeper or get clarity. So once we have the task established, basically the way the interviews are is we would observe their behaviors and actions based on trying to accomplish a task. And we would use these are pretty common website usability heuristics. They were developed by Nielsen and Molick some time ago, and they were kind of the founding fathers of this type of research. And heuristics are really just a general rule of thumb, a guideline on how to design a website for efficient use and positive satisfaction. So I'll just kind of quickly go through a few of these. One, visibility, a system status. We keep users informed about what's going on with appropriate feedback in a reasonable time. Matching between system and the real world, speaking to them in their language based on their experiences. Number 3, user control and freedom allows them to easily undo things or accomplish a task in more than one way. Consistency and standards, following familiar processes and conventions and actions and language. Error prevention, good error message, better yet, prevent or minimize error. Recognition rather than recall, not force users to think or work hard, make it easy, make it intuitive. Flexibility and efficiency of use, make it simple, make it extremely easy. 8, aesthetic and minimalist design, only the relevant information that's needed in the design or the feature is what needs to be there. And help users recognize and diagnose and recover from errors, guiding them to easily recover or where there's not too harsh of a punishment for their mistakes. So the overall goal when you are evaluating a website, you basically assign them a task and you use these heuristics to identify problems associated with the design of the user interface. And ultimately, you're trying to increase the usability and create a positive experience for the brand.
I think one of the key things really with that website usability and app usability is kind of goes in there too, is that you want kind of an iterative approach to it. I think that it's those really kind of 8 to 12 people is really all you need, it seems like, for each wave, if you will, to kind of make sure that you're understanding what's going on. And one of the things that we really try to do when we look at these usabilities is kind of identify those tasks or heuristics that are impossible to move forward from. And so you've got these things that are kind of that stop progress, if you will. And then we've got these things that, well, it doesn't stop it completely, but it makes it really hard to get to. And so where the idea would be that it would take one click to go from this point to the other point, oh, well, it's taken respondents 3 or 4 times to get there. And then there's these other things that are kind of like the nice to haves. It's, everybody hates the orange color, let's make it green. Or I can't read the text very well if it was a little bit darker or brighter or different color or font. That would help. So I think one of the key things is just this, to start off with kind of smaller sample sizes than you may think necessary. You don't need 40 or 50 people to go through a usability in one wave. Now, you may have different waves as you improve and work on it, but 8 to 12 people we found is a really good number to kind of start with. Make sure you uncover all of your major issues, and then you can have other waves if you want to.
Yeah, and we, a lot of times we're evaluating a website just before it launches. So, Clay alluded to those 3 buckets, and that's oftentimes how we report it is, a failed use case. This is something that is critical, needs to be fixed before you launch. And then here's some other changes that would make the experience better. It wasn't a failed use case necessarily, but it'd be something that if you fixed, you would make that experience better, make the usability better. And then the third would be, oftentimes when we conduct these, people will say, I wish this, or wouldn't it be great if that? And these are suggestions and enhancements that we take and, let the client do with what they will. So a case study, just one I want to talk about is, we had a healthcare client that was transitioning from paper enrollment to a portal to streamline the process and make the signing up easier and faster for their brokers. So we conducted a combination of in-person interviews at a facility, and we also did some live screen sharing for those who worked in other markets. And while the portal only had, really one failed use case, as we talked about, one in that top bucket, it was an easy fix. It was something where it was a bad thing because they could easily have dropped someone from enrollment, but there was a way that they could easily fix it. However, there were other issues that created frustrations and inefficiencies. And what we found was, the process of entering the information did not match the real world order of the enrollment form. And then likewise, the information that is needed during that process as they're going through the form. So, this created a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration. Oftentimes we heard, okay, this is where I'd pick up the phone and call the client and help or complain or, go back to the paper. So that level of frustration, even though they weren't all critical, there were so many that they added up to create a less than desirable experience. And while, structurally rearranging things to match that real world form is a little bit more difficult than some easy fixes. If this were done something really early on, we probably could have caught some of those things. But this was prior to launch. They had to, I think, actually put the launch off a little bit in order to make those experiences positive. And you got to add it.
Oh, yeah. So as we're talking about different case studies, a couple of examples of some app usability work that we've done. We had a client that had an app, and they wanted people to come in and sign up for an online service. And what people were doing was when they had a question, they were going to the app. But problem was they were getting visitors to the site, but no one was signing up in the app. And, one of the things that as the usability work went in, we found that there was, one of the problems was it was just too much hassle to sign up. It was a little bit more than what they wanted to do to actually sign up. But the biggest learning actually came around was people loved the app. It had great information. It was easy to read, and it was seen as educational. And the problem was, honestly, that it was educational enough that they didn't feel they needed to sign up. So, again, people were kind of, oh, I wonder about this. They were going to the app, looking up the information, and getting enough of what they wanted before having to, to sign up. And so it was just, oh, I just needed a quick hit. And so it was able to kind of take the app and make it easier to sign up, but also kind of changing the way the information was presented to kind of encourage people to sign up. Another one was geared more towards the emotional side of usability. There was an app we were working with, and the app, for the most part, was all about swiping, if you will, to move forward and to find other information. However, again, kind of the idea was for this one particular task, you had to push a button. And there was literally nothing wrong with the exercise. There was nothing wrong with pushing the button. It worked efficiently, effectively. It did what it was supposed to. But respondents weren't expecting this. And it caused a little bit of confusion and a little angst at first, actually. They were kind of like, well, pushing it or trying to push it 2 or 3 times because they were kind of not conditioned to that particular response that was wanted. Again, a lot of people got over it quickly, but people just decided it wasn't worth it also. And so I think that kind of really goes back to this idea we were talking about. It's not only important when you're doing usability to understand and watch what they're doing to make sure it works, but to understand that emotional side, that the satisfaction, the expectations that people have, because that ultimately is going to lead to a better customer experience. All right, Roger, you want to kind of broaden the scope a little bit, if you will.
So, as we, over the years have, and we mentioned this earlier, conducted usability studies, we get to touch a lot of different categories and products and environments. But we realized, the 10 heuristics that Nielsen and Mullick developed, that we kind of started seeing that these could really apply to these other products or other environments we were conducting research. So, we took those 10 and we boiled them down into 4 common themes, if you will. And that is clear communication, easy design, forgiveness and flexibility, and matching behaviors and actions. And all the usability principles kind of fit within these 4 buckets. I think 1 or 2 may be shared, so they're not necessarily all mutually exclusive. But these were the 4 common themes that we heard. And when we now take on projects that could has a usability element to it, these are the themes that we use, that we refer to help us uncover those insights, and whether it's real narrow in a specific task or a specific thing with in an environment that they're trying to accomplish, or even broadly of how they use the whole environment or their whole experience. These are the things that we help to guide us in some of and also uncover some of the insights that may pop up. So I've got a few quick examples. We all see this. We live in this world, and we're seeing these products more and more. Whether it's appliances or what have you, that incorporating smart features and touch screen interfaces for controlling the device. I think almost a decade ago, we were working with a major manufacturer of an appliance, and they wanted to know how users would experience their product with a touch screen. And this is a product you wouldn't normally think of having a touch screen or really even interacting with frequently. But they wanted to know, okay, if their appliance did have a touch screen, how would they use it to control a device, from a usability standpoint. So we did live screen sharing where users dialed in remotely, and we had a functioning interface that allowed them to adjust the appliance as if they were touching a touch screen. So just simply using their mouse, and we'd give them scenarios. Okay, you're going away for a week, and you're going to want to do this. What do you do? Or you've got family over, and it's twice the amount of people in the home. What would you do to, and you fill in the blank. So what we found was, there were some usability issues. Some of the symbols they used weren't necessarily clearly communicating from their from what common categories are for what they did. Some of the language didn't match, in terms of how they're interacting with the product, because this was an appliance that most people just didn't usually interact with. So we use those principles to help us kind of view some of those insights. Another one comes to mind is we, for an automobile manufacturer, we did a pretty in-depth ethnographic study. It had two big old long interviews sandwiched between where the respondent was driving the vehicle and using it. So we also installed video cameras in the vehicle to capture that experience while they were using it. We had, in addition to the in-person interviews, we had an online board where they can upload things. But we wanted to capture the while they were in the car, using the information and entertainment centers on this vehicle. And as I mentioned, these things are now touchscreen. They're more computers than they are vehicles. And what we found, is by watching this experience in their natural environment, interacting with us, while they were pretty happy with the vehicle from a normal performance standpoint and how it handled and things, they were highly frustrated with the interaction with the information and entertainment center. So this is, seeing that frustration. We had failed use cases all over the board where they couldn't use a navigation and would rather go use their own personal map or home map. But these things, thinking about that environment, that automobile, from a usability standpoint, and using those themes, it really helped us to see and articulate some of these experiences where you'd want to improve. For general products, tools, home products, packages, that type of thing, we did a study for a tool manufacturer about a new accessory that attaches to another common tool. So as you can tell, I kind of have to blank some of this. So everything we do is things for our clients. So we're just trying to give you examples of things we've worked on in general categories. But for this tool, we wanted to, I think we talked to both pros and general consumers. We talked to pros at their their job site. We wanted to see how they accomplish a task using the tools they currently have, and then using the tool with this new accessory. So we observed those tasks, and that task varied by person, but the tool would apply to each of those different types of materials or things that they were working on. So what we found, while we observed this task, was not only that new accessory was far superior in performance, how quickly it got the job done, but it also, it replaced two other tools. And one thing we discovered is the motion that they were using this tool was very natural. It was something that we observed, and also they commented on, is as they moved and performed the task, it was just felt very natural and comfortable and easy. So, this was an example of, it hitting those overall theme heuristics of, easy and matching the behaviors and action, really kind of synced with what they were trying to accomplish. We also did something with a home product where they wanted to see how unpacking and assembling, how that would go. So we wanted to watch them. We brought them to a central facility. We didn't do any on-site on this occasion or in home, but we brought them to an on-site. And then we wanted to watch and see how they went about unpacking the product, assembling it, and ultimately using it. So we observed that process. How much are they using the manual? What parts of the manual are working or not working? And we were able to identify several aspects of using symbols and matching language, even things as small as, the size that it shows one part relative to the size of the other. They didn't understand what a chip was, for example, because it was huge. It looked like a large piece of paper compared to the other symbols. So little things like that, where we're looking for ways to increase its usability and increase its experience.
And one of the things I think that's a great use of usability research, and I kind of joked a little bit earlier at the beginning about not reading the user's manual or how to use it, but a lot of good work in usability is used to help with the instruction manuals and things like that. So
or on the product, as because people are looking at the product for direction, as you mentioned.
Yeah. So we've done work where we've had a new product, and we were actually working with the technical writers to help them, design or to write their instruction manuals. And so it's nice and easy to follow what is kind of natural, to your point, and then kind of incorporate that into the instruction manuals. But it also lets you know what you have to give more education to versus less education to. So again, just another application of usability kind of in a more general manner.
So, I think that's me. So, another example as we're broadening kind of how usability or these themes could be used for other areas. We had for store shopping, we had a client who actually provided services to those retail clients. So they sold to all of them. And they wanted to know how shoppers shop the store. So we wanted to view them, and we looked at this as a usability research on how they used what's in their environment, what's in their space to accomplish the task. So we recruited a whole different mix of shopper types, frequencies, familiar, unfamiliar with the stores. And on top of that, we did it over the holiday shopping season, which was the busiest and hectic. So it was good to see them under pressure, if you will, or shopping for things they need and are highly using the information that's around them. So, one of the things that we saw was part of this, we also had them, including in-person shop-alongs. We also had a subgroup that would do it virtually, where they were prompted to go to the store, take images or, of their experience or things that were helpful, things that weren't helpful. And then we followed that back up with a telephone interview. So it was a hybrid, if you will, with a couple different approaches. And we gathered several insights, one of which was, again, matching the language that the user is used to. The signs weren't matching what they were looking for. We actually had a male respondent that just simply could not find something for his daughter because the signage didn't match the words or phrases he typically used. And like a website, it was a failed use case. He left the store and went and found it somewhere else. Another example is the drive-through experience we conducted a few years back. And again, we installed cameras in the vehicle to observe, not only the decision-making on where to go and why, but their experience of the drive-through. So, one of the usability aspects that came through, beyond the interaction and frustration with the speaker box or trying to figure out what's on the menu and reviewing that, one thing that kind of came up that was interesting was how the aesthetics of the drive-through experience was noted by the respondents and also just some of the reactions they had. And drivers had to often maneuver their vehicle through tight corners, the experience behind those things is not the most pleasant. You're seeing the dumpsters or the things opening up, and you're trying to or about to go experience something to eat or something to drink, and so this was a very negative aspect. It was aesthetically unpleasing, and so it really contributed to a general experience that wasn't positive. There were other aspects that they wanted or wished for in that while they were in that drive-through experience, and being more productive, finding out more information, those type of things, but not necessarily seeing that mood enhancing to a negative of the dumpster and seeing that type of thing.
All right, and just kind of to sum up what we've been talking about, and just kind of quickly give you some ideas on how to move forward and what to move forward with. First and foremost, I think it's really about setting the objectives and goals of the research. You need to know what you want to accomplish with the research. If again, I'm going to kind of go back to a web usability. Do you want them to click on something? Do you want them to put something in their shopping cart? Do you want to, finalize the sale? Do you just want them to sign up for an email? What is that conversion that you want them to happen, and do you want them to do? Couple of key things. You have to know their needs and behaviors. And you need to know what customers normally do, how they typically accomplish a task or job. This really kind of helps provide a baseline of understanding, and it helps to design the research. So it's important to know what they're doing prior to the usability. But one of the things that we often do in usability, both in an app or web, as well as kind of in more physical usability tests, is we let them kind of just have the tool or the website or the app and let them play for a little bit, if you will. We just kind of want to watch them do what they would normally do. And specifically, if you're looking at a website, you go in, the way we typically align these up is we'll have them just kind of go in and watch and observe what they would normally do. So how they play is the best way to talk about it. Along with that, you have to be task or scenario oriented. What do we want them to accomplish? And so again, typically what we'll do is we'll have them kind of go in, play a little bit, and then we will have those specific tasks that we want them to accomplish, and we ask them to do those. And both of these, we're kind of watching what they're doing, we're monitoring, but it's very good to again, let them play and then have specific tasks that you want them to do. The right environment's critical. Context is often important, and you want to make sure that you have the right environment for usability. Now, that could vary. It could be done remotely through live screen sharing, for example. Maybe it's observation through self-reporting where they're doing something on their own. Maybe you're bringing them into a central research location. Maybe you're going to the place of activity, whether it's a workshop or their place of work or their home. Important thing when you think about the right environment is you need to make sure that you understand the positives and negatives, and that you understand what's going to be a benefit of being in that location versus a different location. We talked a little bit about this, but really the key in usability is it's observational, but it's also thinking aloud. It's observational and conversational. That means we're watching them do things. We're asking them to talk aloud. We're asking them to describe what they're feeling, what they're doing, but we're also probing with questions too. Now, you don't want to be where you're affecting what is being done, but you want to make sure that you're kind of monitoring and asking appropriate questions when it's the right time. Because again, one of the things about usability is just by the fact that you're monitoring, you're often kind of affecting what they're doing. And so we really want to make sure it is as clean a read as possible. We talked a little bit about, but you want to conduct usability research early, and you want to conduct it often. Again, kind of a small number of users is typically what we'll do, 8 to 12 in a wave or an iteration, if you will. It's really important, I think, and you find the benefits in doing these smaller sample sizes and then doing different iterations as you go through. Really kind of in closing, it's really creating positive usability experiences. The benefit is that you create positive customer experiences. And ultimately what that's going to do is it's going to lead you to loyalty to your brand. It's going to make your customers more loyal. The better the experience that they have, the better they're able to use and interact with your product and or service. Now what we'll do is we're just going to open it up for any questions.
Let me see.
Roger, do we have any questions?
Yeah, let me go click through here. How many iterations do you typically need?
That's one of those it depends questions.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Again, what we say is the small iterations are important. The smaller sample sizes give you the benefits that you need. We've done work where the first 8, the first iteration captured some. The only thing that we did was we were able to capture those stopping points. And so we weren't really able to understand or identify any maybe less important activities. So the first iteration, we actually, we did a project where we stopped after 4 interviews because there was a bug, if you will, in the system that no one could get past. So we stopped at 4. They went back, they fixed that problem, and then we came in with, trying with another sample size of 8. And we went through, I think, 4 or 5 iterations before we kind of got to the website where it's a place that people felt comfortable with it. Other examples is, we've gone through and there was only those things that were the nice to haves. And so it was one iteration. There was, I think, 2 errors that were a little bit hard to get through, but one iteration took care of everything we needed. So it really kind of depends. But the iterative approach lets you kind of approach it from a way that you don't have to commit a lot of resources and money up front. You kind of can tailor it and stop it when you want to.
Heads off those maybe things that might cost a lot at the end if you weren't on the right path in the beginning. It reminds me of some product research we've done where you worked with not only first pictures, and then there's a foam type of prototype that's the shape and look of it. Then the next iteration is they have the buttons that are actually working for it, and then finally we have a full functioning product that we test in their home and how they're using it. So we've seen it from a piece of paper to in someone's home, and we've been able to help them along the way. Let's see, anything else to add on that?
No.
What other environments or spaces could apply here? It's really anything we've done. You name it, kitchens, bathrooms. I mean, you look at just for an example on a kitchen. The function of a kitchen nowadays is far more expansive than what it used to be, where you're just preparing food. Now it's not only a gathering place for prepping for eating and joint times together, but it's a social thing. It's a gathering place. So the usability of how they go about, using that space is something we look at. Living spaces, we're seeing homes becoming more functional and things they put in. So all those types of spaces we've been in garages and we've been in work trucks. We've been in homes or office workplaces, really any retail store. We not only, go into shop-alongs, but we also send them in and prompt them virtually. We've done zoos and visitor centers where they're using the signage and the pathways and that things of that nature to help them, move through the zoo and have a pleasant experience. So really it's anything where that you can experience or you're trying to accomplish a task or goal in that space.
And I think we talked about this at the beginning. One of the things about usability is it kind of used to be considered a standalone of, I'm doing usability research. And that was kind of what it was referred to is, I'm going to do website usability, I'm going to do app usability or whatever it is. And now as things have broadened, we really, I do believe that, usability is a component and a key part of that customer journey or that customer experience. And again, so a lot of times in our customer journey work, that app usability or that website usability is a component of it. And it's not only understanding what it is, how it functions, but what it's used for and where it fits in that customer journey. Especially if you think about websites and apps, sometimes websites are used at the beginning of the journey. Sometimes they're used towards the close of the journey. And so different objectives that the consumer has depending on where that need is for that website.
Okay. All right, do we have time for one more? Let's see. All right, give it time. Yeah. So, how will new technology, be used in the future for marketing research? Really, the technology and how it's evolved over the years is one of the things that makes this job very exciting, and also opens up so many opportunities to get closer to, the user, the respondent, the customer, and observe and see their experiences. We are experimenting, and we've used, body cameras, live stream types of video. We've explored drones for certain projects, other mounted cameras that either we're there in person or that we kind of self-report and hand it off to the respondent. One of the things, we we mentioned we do a lot of on-site interviews, and sometimes it's very difficult to get on that property. There's a lot of insurance problems and issues, and so it's very difficult for us to actually get to that spot. So we are using technology to help us get to that spot, to help us observe a task, and to learn more about places that we couldn't normally be. So that we see technology really as helping us continually fill in the gaps. People are becoming more comfortable using, web cameras and other things in their home, and allowing us to be just a little bit more, I wouldn't say intrusive, but they're allowing us in their space to help us observe certain things for marketing.
And you mentioned drones. I think that's been a fun way to expand the borders of usability, if you will, because it gives you kind of an elevated view of what's happening. And so, I think work we've done with drones has been really interesting because it gives you a perspective that you would not have been able to understand or see previously. So it is fun to have these new technologies come up, and it fits. The key is when things come up like that, these new technologies, finding out and determining how they can best fit and give you more benefits, not just be something that's kind of, it's a cool toy, but it really doesn't add any benefits.
And you can think of even virtual reality and how that technology is going to evolve and development, and how usability might apply there. Artificial intelligence and how people now taking driverless cars, or will eventually, it's not happening quite yet, but it'll eventually happen. What are they doing with that time? How are they using that space? All types of things of how technology is going to affect us, and we want eventually to get to a place where we're learning how to make that experience better for whatever brand or company you're working for. So okay, I think.
All right, is that it? Okay, so now we're going to hand the presentation back over to Christy.
Thank you for attending today's Insider Series webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to email Clay or Roger. Our next Insider Series webinar will be on shopping research on October 24th. Our presenter will be Jerry Thomas. Be sure to go to our website to sign up for our email newsletter to keep informed of our latest blogs, videos, and webinar announcements. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of the day, and thank you again for attending.